The whole notion that a child born in San Jose or in Richmond or the East Bay, a mere stone's throw from Silicon Valley, wouldn't have access to the amazing innovation that's created here on California soil should be a crime. Closing the digital divide is a fundamental civil rights issue from my perspective.
In 2007, large numbers of our rural communities had no access to high-speed internet service, and major segments of California's population were not connected at home. In 2008, 55% of Californians were connected at home, the same as the national average. But only 33% of low-income households, 34% of Latino families, and 36% of people with disabilities were connected.
There still is the equivalent of 6 states on the East Coast that are unserved in California.
Many of our telecoms are reluctant to go out into our rural areas. If you go out to King City in the Salinas Valley, there is no Comcast, there is no AT&T, there is satellite. That's $90 a month.
768,000 households, 2.2 million people, had no access to broadband infrastructure. The population of the state of New Mexico spread out over 44,000 square miles, the size of the state of Kentucky. Almost 13 million people were not online at home, greater than the total population of the state of Illinois. In Los Angeles County, the most populous county in the nation, less than half the residents were connected. 1.9 million people with disabilities were not connected, the population of Nebraska.
The road out of poverty for any community is the ability to find employment, and if we don't have access to the internet, we're not going to get there.
People who use the internet to find a job find that job much more quickly than people who don't, and they keep that job much longer than people who don't.
680,000 Native Americans were not connected, the population of Vermont. More Native Americans reside in California than any other state, mostly in urban, poor neighborhoods. California has 109 federally recognized tribes, many with remote tribal lands with little broadband infrastructure.
We have, our tribal communities, and trying to really reach out to those communities is really difficult.
Technology is going to help farmers get through the drought, deal with climate change, strengthen the environmental footprint of agriculture, and increase profits. It's actually how we're going to feed the world.
The California Emerging Technology Fund is a unique organization in the nation.
CETF has served to really bridge policy and practice.
I feel that their most significant accomplishment has been to bring access to computers and access to technology to inner city schools, as well as ensuring that public housing buildings are also wired for the internet. That's part of our smart housing strategy.
CETF has really provided that blueprint. It's brought amazing teams together. It really has made the impossible possible when it comes to deploying broadband to areas that just really were not even on the map for elected officials and policymakers.
Lots of people talk about using metrics, but it's really hard to ask, are they doing what we're hoping they're going to do? Are they reaching those outcomes? CETF has really walked the walk and is absolutely a national leader.
CETF has convened people, has leveraged resources, and has moved projects forward that never would have happened if we didn't have an organization that was solely focused on bridging the digital divide in the state of California.
More than $30 million in grants to 100-plus community-based organizations, 800,000 people trained in digital literacy and workforce skills, 250,000 low-income households signed up for broadband. In the last decade, California Emerging Technology Fund has launched the public education program Get Connected, sponsored Governor's Executive Order on digital literacy, advanced smart housing in communities, promoted broadband as a green strategy, and assisted the deployment of infrastructure to more than 110,000 households through the California Advanced Services Fund.
We created and funded regional consortia that worked within their respective regions to address adoption and deployment issues.
I think CETF's most significant accomplishment, and because I have a soft spot in my heart for education, has been the school-to-home program.
Telemedicine is an important way to enable access using broadband. CETF has been a leader in California in driving the adoption of telemedicine.
The California Emerging Technology Fund operates very effectively and efficiently in the public interest.
We matched funds, we brought in federal money, we brought in money from a variety of other sources, worked with other groups that provided matching money.
There are still people that don't have access to broadband. It affects their access to healthcare, to education.
If you don't speak technology, you don't speak a common form of language.
Today, 87% of California households are online at home with high-speed internet service, although 18% have only a smartphone. Smartphones are marvelous devices for navigating the internet, but it is difficult for a child to do homework or an adult to gain workforce skills with just a smartphone. These residents are emerging as a new facet of the digital divide, the underconnected, and the digital divide remains the greatest for the most disadvantaged residents. 19% of low-income households are not connected. 18% of Latino families are not connected. 30% of Spanish-speaking households are not connected. 25% of people with disabilities are not connected. 31% of seniors are not connected. And 33% of non-high school graduates are not connected.
Connecting California to the online world is as critical as the job of getting people connected to telephones and to electricity.
Awareness is being raised, by the work of the California Broadband Council today and organizations such as the California Emerging Technology Fund.
I represent a very large assembly district. We have very spotty cell service in most of my district, and we have very limited internet.
Well, the legislature needs to get educated on how the technology works. I think legislators would be surprised to know in their district who's on which side of the divide.
The major challenge in closing the digital divide is funding.
We need to work as legislators in the state of California to identify those areas of need and work expeditiously to resolve them.
The benefit from this will be not only seeing job growth, but also business growth, and at the same time preparing children for the 21st century educational opportunities.
The legislature can raise the level of awareness.
I don't think any of us who've had access to rapid communications technology would go back to the dial-up days.
A lot of kids are missing out. We've got to change that.
Although there have been impressive gains in digital inclusion in the last decade, too many Californians remain stuck on the wrong side of the digital divide. 43% of rural California has unreliable high-speed internet service. 30% of all Californians are unconnected or underconnected. That's why the California Emerging Technology Fund continues to work to close the digital divide as the sponsor and leader of Internet for All Now. The California Emerging Technology Fund thanks and salutes the community leaders and legislators who are dedicated to closing the digital divide in California.